Welcome to the show. Ivan Nation Sports Talk is up and rolling on a Tuesday afternoon / early evening, along with Vince D'Addario, the Dean of Discipline at Penn High School. I'm Sean Stiers.
I like that. It's one of my favorite nicknames.
The Dean of Discipline. He's coming off a doubleheader last night. Playoff baseball this afternoon. Vince,
That's right.
Just sitting down to watch a little bit of my Royals take on the Orioles, and I'm going to end up missing most of it, I think. So hopefully it's still going, and hopefully it's a close game, by the time we get done. It's been 10 years ago, 2014, the Orioles and the Royals played each other in the first round of the playoffs, and of course Kansas City prevailed there. I don't know what's going to happen this time around, but it's always exciting when you've got playoff baseball on.
That's true.
Afternoon. I love it.
This is true. I don't have any playoff baseball to watch since my team did not make it, and but I always have solace in the fact that the team that I hate the most is the worst possible team in baseball history. So there's always that to fall back on.
That's true. That's very true. Speaking of your team, which is also Jesse's team, the Cubs, of course, the over-under for their season win total was 83 and a half.
What did they hit?
83 and a half. Do you know how many games they ended up winning?
No.
It came down to the final day.
Did it really?
When they played Cincinnati, they had 83. Jesse placed a preseason wager on them to go over.
And he hit the over.
And it went to extra innings.
Shut up.
Scoreless on Sunday. It went to extra innings, no score. And then the Reds ended up scoring 3 runs I think it was the top of the 10th. It was at Wrigley Field. And so Jesse, he wouldn't tell me how much he stood to win, because by the time I asked him, he's like, they're going to lose. Yeah, but so it came right down to the final day, and then it went to extra innings, no score. I think the Reds started maybe their best pitcher in that game, and the Cubs just kind of went with the bullpen day, it sounded like, for the most part, or some young prospect or something like that. So Jesse, by a half a win, missed out on the season over-under win total there.
That's amazing that Vegas got that so right.
Oh, man,
that's amazing to me.
It really is. Yeah. Yep. Because it was looking, he would kind of give me updates. It's like, well, if they do this, and then you kind of looked at their schedule. It wasn't an easy schedule coming down the stretch, and I think that's ultimately what got to him. So, well, let's start off with some Notre Dame football news. We got a lot we're going to get to. We're going to go through some different things. Kind of have some fun with some stuff a little bit here. We're going to do some word association on some different things where Notre Dame is at this bye week. But I guess the news of the day, interesting news anyway, especially the timing of it. Tyson Ford announced today that he's going to hit the transfer portal, and he was he basically became an afterthought. He became a medical retirement. They put him on medical scholarship over the summer. And
so I didn't even realize
he wasn't
that.
even on the team. Yeah. He wasn't even on the team. He was not on the roster this fall.
Okay.
And, former 4-star defensive lineman out of St. Louis in the 2022 recruiting class, didn't play at all as a true freshman in 2022. And then played all of 2 games last year. And then you might remember, he wasn't here for the spring semester. He missed spring ball, went home to St. Louis. And there was he going to come back? What was he going to do? And then he ended up coming back, and they medically retired him over the summer. And so now he's decided he's going to enter the transfer portal.
Well, it's probably the best decision for Tyson Ford. And I believe it also said in his deal that he's going to get his degree in May, which, at the end of the day is obviously the most important thing. For the rest of your life and all of that fun stuff. And so, obviously football did not work out for a myriad of reasons, and injury being a lot of it. And, that stinks obviously for him. It was a lot of potential there. The dreaded P word, potential. And, he didn't live up to it for, again, a myriad of reasons. And, you wish him good luck, and he's going to be, again, a Notre Dame graduate, and he's going to have, I think, 3 years of eligibility left when he gets to whatever school he ends up going to, because he redshirted and then he got a medical red shirt as well. And so, good for him. I mean, I would say that it's fairly weird timing that you come out with that information on October 1st. But I'm a little, I don't know. It's like I said, just weird timing. You could have done that at the end of the year, but maybe he wants to get his name out there to other schools and they can start thinking about him or whatever. But I don't know. Just kind of a weird situation.
Well, as we've talked about before, there's a good chance that the only transfer portal window is going to be December. They still haven't approved that, officially yet. So, like you said, he's getting it out there anyway. Joe said, so it wasn't a physical injury. I mean, he was on, again, like a medical scholarship. They took him off the roster for medical, whatever reasons, whatever, I don't know exactly what they ended up being, but like you said, he'd had some other injury, kind of an injury history anyway in his time here at Notre Dame. So maybe some time off will kind of, get him a chance to get healthy, kind of like Joey Tanona. You remember that? Like, he left and he medically retired here at Notre Dame and he's there at Purdue. And actually, when this news came up with Tyson Ford, I was like, oh yeah, Tanona. I don't even remember if he played against Notre Dame in that Purdue game. He was kind of an after.
Did anybody from Purdue play against Notre Dame in that game? That's the question.
Yeah, I know, right?
That was rough.
Yeah, I mean,
but
Hunter said it could be physical. I mean, I don't know exactly what we're talking about here, but physical, medical, and
kind
of synonymous.
he can reach out to anybody he wants because he's not part of the football program anymore. So
yeah,
I don't think there's any rules to where he can't start going on visits and reaching out to schools and doing all the things that he needs to do to basically start getting himself out there,
right. He's just a student at Notre Dame right now.
Exactly.
Common student. He can do whatever he wants. Cause like I said, he's not on the fall football roster. He did not go through any of training camp. He's not on the roster and is free to do whatever he wants. And, decided that he wants to hit the portal and give it a shot and go play someplace else. So good luck to him. Hopefully it works out for him. Because, I know there were kind of a lot of expectations, especially when you come in with a 4-star coming in here and it just didn't work out at Notre Dame.
He's a big body and, you're always looking for big athletic bodies and, everybody kind of thought that's who he was or he would be for Notre Dame. And again, it just didn't work out that way. And not every guy works out. I mean, that's the easiest way to put it. Not every guy works out, but again, he's going to end up with his degree and 3 years of eligibility left, which, by the way, coming in, getting your degree from Notre Dame and still having 3 years of eligibility left, like Stymie said in the chat, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is.
When you think impressive, about it.
Yep. So, but you have 3 years of eligibility left because unfortunately, you didn't play the first 2 years that you were here. So, but yeah, I mean, like when you think about it, like if he had been here, I don't know if he was taking online courses and that kind of thing in the spring still, but he just wasn't here.
Question.
I don't know if he was doing anything, but like potentially could have even been done a semester sooner based on the fact that he went.
That's a good point. Spring. That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. So again, I mean, you're right. Like it's very impressive to get your Notre Dame degree and then go out and still be able to play 3 years someplace. I mean, that's gonna. I would imagine that'll carry some weight for wherever he wants to go. Anyway, it's like you're just in whatever grad program. He doesn't have to take a full load of courses and stuff like that. You can just take some different surveys or whatever it happens to be probably and do your thing for 3 years. So not bad. Or get your graduate degree in whatever you want to do it to.
Gotcha.
So Notre Dame, of course, rolled into the bye week with the win Saturday over Louisville. I have to say, I was not surprised at the number of people that I saw saying, well, Notre Dame's not a playoff level team, or they're not a playoff caliber team because they didn't look good enough on Saturday. What did you think about all that, Vince? I know you I'm sure you heard more of that in the post-game show Saturday night.
Not as much as you would think, to be honest with you, but there's still a lot of people like they can't keep playing this way and win and blah, 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 blah. And I just want to be like Michigan. Like Michigan last year is a prime example of you actually can play that way and still win ball games. But I digress. You know, I said this 3 weeks ago after the Northern Illinois loss, and I'll continue to say it. I'm not even thinking about the playoff right now. Like, they just need to get better week to week. And so far, since that moment, they've gotten better every single week, in my opinion. And so you just need to see them building. Like, you're not picking up this Notre Dame team on September 28th and then transporting them into December when the playoff, like, you still have 2 months to get better, or worse, I suppose. But in theory, you're going to continue to get better. So this is not the same Notre Dame team that you're going to see in December as you see in September. So, like, I don't know. I just think people are getting ready to jump off a bridge, and there's just really no need for it, because can we safely say that Oregon has looked like a playoff team? Because they haven't looked good. They've almost lost a bunch of games. Now they've won them.
And the point that Joe is bringing up is a good one. The artist formerly known as Sloppy Joe. He says he saw Notre Dame fans saying we're not a playoff team because Notre Dame has no chance of beating Alabama or Georgia. And then, like he said in his next thing here, if that's the case, there should only be a 14 playoff. And that's what I think a lot of people have to get your head wrapped around. This is no longer a 4-team playoff where it's essentially like the cream of the crop, or the only 4 who are going to make it. There's 8 more teams who are going to make it into the field this year. And if Notre Dame keeps getting better, they have every reason and right to believe that they belong in a 12-team field. And like as far as Alabama and Georgia and Texas are concerned, which to me are probably the 3 top teams in the country right now, just based on everything that we've seen. If it comes to that, Notre Dame's not going to have to worry about them until, what'll that be? Late December, early January, when they would have to play them after a first-round game, assuming that they win. And I mean, like, look at Alabama and Georgia as your example, though, because Alabama gets up 28-0, then they give up a lead, and then they still won the game.
Georgia looks like awful in the first half, by the way.
Both of those teams look bad for stretches in that game. Right.
And I'm sorry, Notre Dame's defense is pretty freaking good. So I think they can play with anybody. I'm not saying that they're going to go in and win those games, but they can play with anybody. I will firmly believe that. They can play with anybody.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Notre Dame's offense is going to get better as they move on. They've gotten better week to week to week to week. They have. Anybody that it says they haven't is not paying attention. Notre Dame's defense is really freaking good.
If you watch the Bama-Georgia game, it feels like we're still so far behind. How can you argue that? Again, you're not playing Alabama or Georgia tomorrow. You're not even playing them next week or the week after that or next month. At the earliest, you're playing them in December. And your goal, as we started talking about, is to get incrementally better every week. No one's saying, and again, you're talking about a 12-team field. Alabama, Georgia are still the cream of the crop. That was, that's been pretty obvious right now. So nobody's disputing that Notre Dame can walk on the field and compete with either one of them right now. But the other aspect, as we detailed in yesterday's show, look at the list of injuries that Notre Dame is dealing with right now. Like, look at the, like if you had Christian Gray and Benjamin Morrison for the entire game against Louisville, that game looks pretty differently. If you had Notre Dame's full force 1 through 5 offensive line against Louisville and every other team that they've played so far, everything looks a lot different at this point, right? So, like, that's Notre Dame is going, I would argue, and I haven't looked at every team in the country. I would argue, though, that 5 weeks into the season, no team has had to deal with the sheer amount of injuries that Notre Dame has had to deal with.
That's facts. So far. That's absolute facts. There was one point in the game yesterday where they were down their top 2, defensive ends. They were down their top 3 corners, right? I mean, let's be honest. That's a lot to lose and still play well. And they did play well. Mm-hmm. So, give them an opportunity to play at full strength. And I think you're going to see a different team. Like they didn't, like Jay said, they got gashed on Saturday. They did not. The defense did not get gashed on Saturday. That's you're seeing the game through the lens that you want to see it through. They did not get gashed in that game by any stretch of the imagination. I'm sorry, that did not happen. Okay.
No, I mean, again, when you give any team a short field 2 different times, we're talking about red zone short, like when you let them start off
line and 1 9-yard line, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. When you let them start off halfway through the red zone and just outside the red zone on those 2 possessions, like that's going to be hard for any, Notre Dame got one of those as well. But like I said yesterday, if you take away the 3 short field situations, the one that Notre Dame got and the 2 that Louisville got, Notre Dame still wins that game handily, and that's without Christian Gray the entire game. That's without Boubacar Traore for most of the game, and Logan Thomas, a true freshman out there, playing for big stretches of the game, and Junior Tui Alamaka doing really well, and then, stretches again of the game where you already didn't have Christian Gray and Benjamin Morrison had to go out for a little bit, and they still managed to beat a good team like Louisville. I would expect that Louisville is going to be, at the very least, I would say that Louisville is going to be a contender to be one of the top 2 teams in the ACC and get into the ACC championship game for a second straight year.
And they've got their entire road ahead of them, and it's in their control, right? Because they play Miami and they play Clemson. And so we're going to see head-to-head how good Louisville is against those 2 teams, right? And so, look, I think it's important to understand that they're going to be getting some of these guys back from injury, and that's going to be a good thing for Notre Dame. But even with that said, the defense played fine. And the offense, the offense played fine in the first quarter. They played what they had to do in the fourth quarter. I mean, here's my thing about the offense, and we kind of talked about this yesterday, and so I'm not going to go into it, super far, okay? The offense before Riley Leonard got flattened, okay, was one way. And then after Riley Leonard got flattened and Jadarian Price fumbled, the playbook went, and it got very, 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 very thin, okay, on purpose, because they didn't want to put their offense in a place where they would turn the ball over again. And so they shrunk the game down as much as they
kind of BK'd the game.
Do.
They BK'd the game
100%. And then when they knew they needed a touchdown on that one drive,
came to life,
Sean? They got a touchdown, and all of a sudden, play calling was different, and they were able to spread them out, and they had motion, and they did all of these things, and they scored a touchdown. So I'm just saying, I think, and I don't agree with it, but I think the shutdown of the offense was by design, not by they couldn't do it if they didn't want to. Again,
I mean, I never really thought about it in those terms, but that's when you think back on the way they played it. And you didn't have Jadarian Price in there for basically.
And they didn't want Riley Leonard to get hurt anymore.
Yeah,
so they stopped running him and they stopped doing different things. And when you stop running Riley Leonard, you get a glimpse.
That's when the offense starts to stagnate again. Yes, if you had a different quarterback in there, that's much more of what the offense is going to look like. That's why you need that dynamic runner of the football. But Sloppy Joe, Joe is here. He pointed out, I saw some stuff that he posted on the Champions Lounge over the weekend, and I pulled this out. Just like Miami came very close to losing to an unranked Virginia Tech team. Probably should have. I don't think that there was enough to overturn that call. Oh,
man, no kidding.
Game. So 6th ranked Ole Miss and number 10 Utah both lost at home over the weekend. And then Michigan, ranked 12th, nearly blew a 3-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter against an unranked Minnesota team. So Notre Dame has beaten 2 ranked teams this year. Only team in the country.
The only team in the country.
2 teams that are currently ranked in the top 25. That's where we are after 5 weeks. I don't think we would have really seen that coming, right?
No.
So, Vince, what I thought we would do, a little bit of word association for different aspects of this team to kind of gauge how we feel about them after 5 games. You want to
All
start
right.
with the offensive line?
All right.
What is the word that best describes, or not word, this is word association, so it can be more than one word.
Okay.
What best describes Notre Dame's offensive line to you?
Just as a whole, young and inconsistent. That would be the best thing that I could come up with because they are very young. I mean, you can't deny that one, right? Whether it's by experience or whether it's by actual chronological age, they are young and inexperienced. And then, the biggest problem is they're inconsistent, right? There are times when they look dominant in the run game. There are times where they miss badly in the pass game. And you can't miss as badly as they have missed at times in the pass game. And so
again, it can be more than one word.
I'm following the rules. Following the rules.
This is not one word to describe it. So
okay.
it can be more than one word.
So young and inconsistent were my 2 words. Those are my 2 words.
Okay.
And I think that's appropriate. They need to become, however they get to it in the bye week, Sean. You can't change how young they are, right? But you can change how inconsistent they are. So they need to work on that, whether that's moving different guys in, whether it's coaching the guys up, whatever the case may be. There are times where this offensive line looks absolutely lost in the woods. Absolutely lost in the woods. And they need to fix that.
That's for sure. And there's a few in. Okay, so I start up a few from the chat, and it took me I was like trying to read this. He's saying mash unit. He can combine the 2 words. It was like I was like mash
unit.
Mash unit. Okay, mine was injury riddled. Was
fair.
Basically mine. So that's along the same. Corey says hopeful.
Glass half full, Corey. I like it.
Michael says fire drill. Anthony says frustrating. Jay says crapshoot.
It's fair.
And Irish for Life 99 patchwork. And I think that, all of those are good. Patchwork, I think, is kind of that's a pretty good summary, I think, right now is patchwork, because like mine was injury decimated, and they've really just had to patch this whole thing together. And I thought what I would do is I went into the PFF numbers, and I looked at the snap counts for these guys, as well as the grades that these guys have from PFF through 5 games, to kind of let both us and everybody else kind of see where they're at. I'm going to have to blow this. I tell you what, I'm going to put it on the whole screen. It'll probably make it a little bit easier.
All right. I'm looking at the cheating copy, so I guess I'll go back and look at okay, there we go.
Yeah, you can do it either way, but I was just putting it up here on the screen for everybody to see. Let me blow it up here at least one more time. There we go. So Sam Pendleton leads the team with 312 snaps. He has a pass block grade of 44.7. And again, like these are out of 100. Run block grade of 66.3. Overall, he is 59.9. Just scroll down here to the bottom real quick. Pat Coogan, who only has a little more than a third, 137 snaps, for example, as Sam Pendleton. He has the best overall PFF grade of any Notre Dame offensive lineman. 74.7 overall. His run block is 72. His pass block is 69.4. Shrouth had the best pass block grade before his injury, 82.6. And his overall grade, 71.2, which is the second best of any lineman. And then you can kind of see I highlighted here Anthony Knapp and Rocco Spindler, because it's interesting that Knapp, with all the struggles he had, actually had his best game against Louisville, while Spindler had been looking pretty good since he came in, had his worst game so far against Louisville. He had a 41.7 pass block grade, 28.1 run block, and a 51.3 overall from PFF. Now, again, it's like some of these, you have to take with a grain of salt, but low is low, and those are pretty low numbers, So even like if you had a plus or minus margin of error of 10, like those are still going to be pretty low numbers, even if you were able to tack on an extra 10 points. Knapp, on the other hand, had his best overall grade, a pass block grade of 69.6, a run block grade of 80.1, and an overall grade of 64.5, which you compare to his overall number is 52.9. And Spindler, like his overall number is 58.8. He had a 51.3 against Louisville. Emil Wagner, just kind of out there, steady Eddie, pass block grade of 72.2. He's got the best pass block grade of anyone on the team. So I don't know, anything in any of those numbers stand out to you, Vince?
I mean, to be honest with you, the numbers that stood out to me were, I don't know how they get some of these numbers. Like, if you have a 69.9 and an 80.1, how do you get a 64.5 out of that? And then the same thing with Rocco Spindler, a 41.7 and a 28.1.
Let me look at this and make sure that because I wrote these down. There's always a chance that I wrote down the wrong numbers.
You probably didn't. That's the problem. But
so
it just seems odd to me. Do Rocco Spindler versus Louisville. Okay. 41.7, 28.1 for a 51.3.
Here's what it says. Spindler, I'm looking right on the PFF page. So this says that Spindler had a 41.7 total grade, a 28.1 pass block grade, and a 51.3 overall grade. Yeah, so that's what I've got.
That's wild to me. I don't know how that math works out. That's the thing.
I don't know. I don't either, because I thought they just basically averaged the two numbers together. And
they clearly did not do that. That's for sure. But
that's a good question.
Look,
that's a really good
either
question.
Either way, these numbers are not Notre Dame standard. Obviously, none of them are. I think that Wagner is doing yeoman's work over there. I think he's done well for, if he was still part of the 5-man, offensive line that they had originally intended there to be, I think those numbers are just fine. You know what I mean? They wouldn't be the best, and they certainly wouldn't be the worst. He'd be right where he needs to be. And the problem is now he's the best. And that's the problem, right? I mean, they need to figure out how to get those other guys at least up to that level of better than average. I think that's where Emil Wagner is. He's better than average, which is great. You come to Notre Dame, you darn well better be better than average. In fact, you better be really good. And right now, I think that the rest of the guys are average at best, and that's a problem. They need to up their game. Yeah, and I'm not even saying they need to be elite. They just need to up it and be consistent.
But again, that's why you have to have someone with Riley Leonard's skill set behind this line, because of those numbers. Because could you imagine, and this is nothing against Jack Cohn, but we all know the difference in mobility between Leonard and Cohn. Right. Like, could you imagine it? Essentially, that's what you would have if Angeli were back there. Could Angeli take off and run every now and then? Sure, he could, but he's never going to have anywhere near the mobility and the ability to get himself out of those situations like Leonard does. And that's
right. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Yeah. So he's the right guy to be behind this line. But then when he gets skittish, worrying about getting his face planted, you can understand why. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he needs to continue to have faith in what's in front of him so that he can keep his eyes downfield and not worry about bailing and doing some different things and trusting what we all will say is his best quality, which is his legs, but we've also seen his arm do some really good things if he's got time and if he's confident. That's the problem.
So what do you think? I know they haven't had a practice yet during the bye week. I believe that's going to come a little bit, later in the week, exactly what they're going to do this week. We don't know what that's going to look like. I guess we'll kind of, be able to ask Marcus Freeman about that next Monday when he holds his next press conference. But do you think we see any changes on the line coming out of the bye next week?
No, I don't. I think I think that if the coaches are honest with themselves, and again, we're not at practice anymore. We don't even get to see the 5 periods, so we don't know what they're seeing at practice. But I feel like this is an opportunity for some of these younger guys, like a Gerby Lambert, for example, or a Sullivan Absher is another example. Like, if they're pushing in practice, then they need to get a shot, because I don't know that they would do worse at this point. I'm not saying that that's the be all end all, and maybe they're not ready. Again, we're not at practice. We don't know. And I'm not just going to throw somebody in there to throw somebody in there. They actually have to show me at practice that they can do it and that they're pushing the guys in front of them. If there's still
the other thing. Yeah. I mean, I think that realistically, probably the only chance we have to see of a change is we don't know the severity of Pendleton's injury, because all Freeman would say after the game is Absher came in because of an injury to Pendleton, didn't say the extent of it, looked like he got rolled. And man, it's like, how many of these offensive linemen can get their legs and knees rolled up this year? Like, it's just happened to all of them, it seems like. And it's like, how, it's like, knock on wood, Emil Wagner and Anthony Knapp have been able to avoid it, but all those interior guys have got it. But that was my point, is that's probably the greatest chance that we see a change made, is if there is, hopefully not, but like
an injury.
If there is an injury to Pendleton, whether it would be Absher, is Schrouth, where is he from a health standpoint right now? They never really kind of nailed down a specific time frame for how long he might be out. They just said a few weeks when it happened, and that was the Purdue game, right? Yeah. So now we've had 2 games since then, 2 games since Purdue, and now a bye week. So it'll be 3 weeks coming out of this, whether or not we see that. I mean, but that would make the most sense, as we've talked about before. If Schrouth comes back, you stick with Spindler, and whether that's Spindler on the left or Schrouth on the right or wherever it happens to be, like, seems like whenever Schrouth comes back, that'll be kind of the next big change, I think. But
yeah, I agree.
Again, at least if you just look at the numbers and you look at the game, it's like we weren't talking about how poorly Knapp played after the game. And then you look at those numbers and it's like, well, again, like, at least it's his best game to date. So there's at least some hints that maybe a corner is being turned. I guess we'll just have to wait and see, though. But, yeah. I mean, that's all you can do at this point.
The problem is it's not a one position problem, I guess is the best way to put it.
Because there's just so much fluctuation across the whole line, with the exception of the 2 tackles. Everybody else, it's in and out.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
So, more word association. The offense.
Emerging. They're emerging.
Okay.
I'll say
Mine's
that.
Work in progress. Work in progress.
That's fair. I just
not the thing.
I think we've seen growth. I think we've seen growth, week to week to week to week. And look, that's what Mike Denbrock said to us at the beginning of the season. He's like, this is not going to be the same offense in week 1 that you're going to see in week 8, 9, 10, whatever the case may be. Like, this is going to be an ever evolving offense. And I think that's what we're seeing. And I don't think they're moving quite the pace that fans, and probably us as well, want them to move at, but they are moving in a positive direction. And so they're emerging.
Yeah. Work in progress, again, was mine. Emerging is yours. Michael says above water. Andre says untapped potential. Garrett says inconsistent. I think they're getting more consistent. Again, like with the emergence of that downfield passing game, which we were all waiting to see.
Oh yeah.
Through 3 games, the offense has started to look different. That opens more things up for Leonard and Love and everybody else, and vice versa. So I think it's moving in the right direction, and that's really all that you can ask at this point. So Michael jumped in, and we've got an Angeli thing going here. You want to just take this one? He says Angeli His first big play on camera in a Notre Dame uniform was the run in the blue gold game. So stop the lies, find a real issue, like he holds the ball and won't throw it away. I mean,
yeah, he did run
that's
the
an
ball
issue
really
too
well against
third
walk-ons and
stringers.
third stringers. It was
right.
We went back and we looked when that happened. We went back and we looked at the defense that was on the field at that time. It was half walk-ons and it was half third stringers. That's who was on the field. Now, is that Steve's fault for who he was going up against? No. Did he still make the play? Yes. But that still has to be taken into account. Okay? He's not dynamic with his legs. And if anybody is going to make the argument that Steve Angeli is the same with his legs as Riley Leonard, you're just making an argument to make an argument. There's no facts there. I'm sorry. It's just not.
I mean, any quarterback at the FBS level should be able to scramble and pick you up some yards every now and then. And like you said, the blue gold game was against third stringers and walk-ons, literally. And then I think Michael also brought up the Purdue game. Again, like I said, anybody can do it for one play.
Correct.
Like
he also got sacked 3 times and had a 42-0 lead.
But that, that also makes, Michael did, concede that he holds on to the ball too long and that, but it's like that one play, you're not going to make a living out of that. If you're Angeli, you're not going to scheme that up for Angeli because he's just, yeah.
Look, he's a scholarship athlete at Notre Dame. Yes, he can go faster than walking. He can run.
Yeah,
but it's not his skill set.
Like if you looked at tape, because I remember this when Jack Cohn was coming into here, like when we found out that he was going to transfer in from Wisconsin, we were all searching and finding his highlights on YouTube, and he had a couple of runs where it's like, man, this guy looks like he could be pretty quick. Like, again, like he wasn't going to be, player. He wasn't going to be a, anywhere close to a Riley Leonard or a Lamar Jackson. Like Michael Campbell was just, throwing in the, he wasn't going to be that, but there were a couple times where he took but did you ever see that when he was at Notre Dame? No. Did they ever, design any of that for him at Notre Dame? No, they didn't, and so it's just they're Steve Angeli and Riley Leonard from a dynamic aspect are just two different cats. That's just all it is.
100%. And look, and that's okay. I mean, he has a lower ceiling than the other 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Okay. Now, maybe his floor is a little higher. Maybe I would even give him that. Maybe his floor is a little bit higher, but his ceiling is a lot lower than the other 3 guys. That's just a fact. I'm sorry. That's where I'm at. And I hate having this argument because I don't want to denigrate who Steve Angeli is, because he's a great backup quarterback on this team in this moment. He is. And he's exactly what this team needs right now.
And if you had to rely on him on a full-time basis, like you said, behind this offensive line, I think we start to see sacks start to pile up, and you probably start to see some more turnovers and things like that popping up, because he's just going to be facing so much more pressure than Leonard is, because of the fact that Leonard can escape that. And, and they can scheme that with Leonard to help him avoid some of that pressure. So,
yeah, there are certain guys we're not going to be able to convince, and that's not our job to convince them. Look, here's the bottom line. They're never going to go to Steve Angeli over Riley Leonard, even a somewhat hurt Riley Leonard. So that's just a fact. That's just where we're at right now. Yeah. And so you can pine for the backup all you want. He's not coming in. So that's where we're at.
It's really like Troy says, Steve is better than Riley, hands down. Steve can push the ball downfield. I don't know about that.
When have we ever seen that?
He might be better as a pure passer. Like if you're comparing him, again, what are you comparing? You're going to tell me that because Angeli has a little bit better touch, maybe a little bit more consistency downfield, that he's a better quarterback, hands down, than Riley Leonard. I mean, we've been through this ad nauseum at this point. Silly. There's just so much more to the game than that.
It's just fine.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah, the offense that just put 34 points up or 31 points up on the board is horrible. So, okay. It hasn't gotten better at all in the last 2 games. Cool. How about the defense, Vince? What to you describes Notre Dame's defense right now?
Borderline elite. Because I don't think that they're there yet because there are some injuries.
I said not quite elite.
Oh, see? Look, man, we're right there. Okay.
Right on the same page.
Yeah. So they're borderline elite. I think that they have the talent to do it. They just need to do it on a bit more of a consistent basis. And they need to get some of their injuries back. They need to get Gabriel Rubio back. They need to get Christian Gray back. You know, they need to make sure Benjamin Morrison is healthy. You know, all of those different things. And once they do, I think this team has a very real chance of being elite. And the other piece of the puzzle there is we finally saw the interior of the defensive line play well against Louisville, or better, I should say. I think there's still room to grow there. And every single game, the young linebackers get better. Every single game they get better. And if they continue on that upward trend, that's only going to make the defense better too.
What do you think of this whole Snead controversy that's starting to brew here a little bit? Have you heard about
none
this? About how he walked off the field, I guess, and
none of us know why he left the field. None of us know. As Brian said last night, maybe he had to pee. Like, there's a million different reasons that you leave the field. Like, why are we inventing reasons to get on this kid?
Well, I mean, he did have a very low snap count. I think it was like 12 snaps that he played. I can check it here real quick, but I think he did not play very much against Louisville. Now, you know, he's been part of a rotation, as we know, that linebacker rotation. And I still think that because of where they are with the Viper position, not that Jalen Snead is going to become a full-time Viper, but I feel like that's another role for him potentially, you know, like third down, you know, Viper types, you know, those kind of things where you can put him in that spot, because you just flat out need bodies right now, right, at that position. I feel like he could contribute there. He played 12 snaps against Louisville the other day, and that is a season low for him. His previous low was the game before, 23 against Miami, Ohio. So he's seen his snap count drop over the last 3 weeks. Now, Purdue, part of that because of the fact that you blew him out, you know, so he wasn't in there as much. But he went from 31 against A&M, 41 against Northern Illinois, 25 against Purdue, 23 against Miami, and 12 last week against Louisville.
Those young cats were playing really, really well. So, you know, and he played his 5 games, and I don't know. I mean, again, I don't want to read too much into it. You know, maybe he's disgruntled by his playing time. I mean, that's definitely possible, but let's not throw this kid under the bus without really knowing what's going on first. That was my first instinct. Like, how about these reporters that are saying these things actually dig in and report some truth first? Because I just don't like the insinuations. That's all I'm saying. Maybe he's a giant dick. I don't know. And he's like, screw this, I'm out. Maybe. Okay?
Well, I mean, he's played all 5 games right now, so he can't redshirt this year. So they're, you know, like, anyone worried about redshirting, I mean, that's a conversation, you know, if that happens, that'll come after the year. I mean, let's face it, there was a chance that he would have left, you know, either last spring or last winter, but he stuck around, and he is part of the rotation. And we knew that there was going to be a linebacker rotation. They all knew there was going to be a linebacker rotation. You know, like there's room for improvement still.
Oh, 100%.
For Jalen Snead.
100%. And he has played this year better than he's played any year that he's been on campus. There's no doubt about that. And so, and maybe it's an opponent situation. Maybe he just doesn't, you know, maybe he didn't match up against these guys the way he matches up against other guys. You know, we don't know.
And that's the thing. I mean, think about how much more you saw Drake Bowen out there as an example. You know, like you're just when you're rotating that many guys, there are going to be different opponents that suit the skills of different guys in that group, and you're going to see more of them based on who the opponent is. That's just kind of the way it works out. So. Okay, Troy is going to Troy. We're not even going to respond to the offense stuff anymore. We're talking about the defense.
Yeah, we're moving on.
I appreciate you being here, but we're not going to go in circles with this argument. But I agree with what you're saying. I think the defense, not quite elite. They are really, really good right now. I think that they're gonna keep you in every game. And my only concern with them right now is just the depth because of the, especially with the Vipers, and what's going on there at this point. Well, I won't say that's my only concern. I think we all still want to see a little bit more from that interior, from the tackles as well.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Definitely. No doubt about it.
How about Jeremiah Love? Word association.
Dynamic.
Dynamic. I went with electric.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. He's just get the ball in his hands. And I think a lot of times, they don't do it enough, and they should. And he's so good. He's just so good. He's so good.
He's so good.
He's just
we need to see more of him.
Yes.
That's
it's simple, right?
Yep. And that's what, like we've heard, unicorn, and it's not rocket science. Let me see. How many touches did he have? He had 5 receptions, actually. 4 of them were very short, but then he also had 11 carries. And that kind of surprises me that he only had 11 carries, considering you didn't, Jadarian Price only got 3 because he got benched for most of the game. So, but I guess Riley Leonard, he had 13 carries, so he had, he takes quite a few of those. But hey, electric.
Yeah.
How about Emil Wagner? Describe Emil Wagner.
Consistent. He is what the rest of the line needs to be. He is consistent. I think he probably had his worst game against Louisville, and that's going to happen, right? But I think overall he's been consistent. And I think, again, it needs to rub off on everybody else. Like, I need that kind of consistency from the other 4 guys, and I think this offensive line will be just fine.
Yeah. Jay said solid. Joe said steady. Andre said the anchor of the offensive line. And I went with under the radar steadiness because,
there you go.
We're not talking about Emil. I would have thought we might be talking more about Emil Wagner, and not in a good way.
In a negative way, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But here's a guy. Jeff says pleasant surprise. Connor said he surprised me. Tom said solid. And he's just been steady Eddie out there. All we've talked about is mostly the left tackle. And then you've got all these injuries with the 3 interior linemen, and everything going on there. But Emil Wagner, for a guy who'd never started a game before this season, we're not talking about a bunch of dumb mistakes that he's out there making. And he's just giving them really consistent play. And that's where was the Emil Wagner grade? As I go back and look at the PFF, has the best pass block grade on the team and has the 3rd best overall PFF grade of the offensive line. So pretty impressive.
I would say when the initial offensive line was kind of announced as to who they were going to be, everybody was like, I don't know how good Emil Wagner is going to be out of those 5. And now all of a sudden he's the only starter left. And he's also been the most consistent starter. So he's been a pleasant surprise. There's no doubt.
I think so. How about the cornerback tandem of Benjamin Morrison and Christian Gray?
Elite. That's where I'll use the word elite. Those 2 are elite. There's no doubt about it. Christian Gray might even be better than Ben Morrison. I don't know. He's a year younger, obviously, and has more time and things like that. But that combo, man, I'm sorry that they're, and I'm not going to use the word hands down, but they are arguably the best duo that are on the same team, the best duo in the country.
Totally agree with that. I have budding greatness. They're right on the verge of greatness. And, like I saw, it might have been Troy and Michael, by the way. They've just come in hot today. Like they're just shooting, they're shooting darts in the chat here this afternoon. And like, I think Troy said that, Benjamin, was struggling against Louisville the other day. Remember, he was injured for a bit
Yeah.
as well. We never got any official word on what his injury was, but he did have to leave the game
He
for a
did.
while, and then he came back in. Now he has been a little bit more up and down this year than maybe I thought he would be, but
Yeah. He's given
look,
up a few that I didn't
yeah,
think were necessary, but yeah.
at the end of the day, like you've got those two out there, you're going to be like, if they're out there 90% of the time, every Saturday, you're feeling good about whoever they're matching up with. And like your defense,
Right.
I think starts with that.
Well, and Steven says he's not sure Gray is better than Hart was yet, but he will get there. They're completely different styles of play, though. Like they play differently, they're built differently. Like, maybe the overall impact is similar or could be similar when it's all said and done with Christian Gray, because obviously Cam Hart was really, really good, but they play so differently that their impact is a little bit different, if that makes sense. And so Christian Gray is kind of a carbon copy of Ben Morrison, right? And Cam Hart was just a little bit different than that. So both ways are effective. Both ways are really, really good. And I think, Cam Hart was obviously really, really good for this team. I just think that this combo is just so good. I mean, they are absolutely elite.
Yeah, and I mean just the length that Christian Gray has, and the what he's done, just going out there making plays, and like Morrison. Interesting comment here from Stymie. He says he hasn't been playing the greatest, and that young talent is picking him up. Impressive to see. I would
mean,
agree
we
with that.
obviously the bar is set very high for BMO for obvious reasons. And if it
right.
was anybody else, you'd be like, man, he is playing great. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But we're all like, oh man, how did they get one completion on him? How did that happen? He's not playing well. So I mean, the bar is set very, very high for good reason, though. He's that good. So yeah, I agree. He has given up some plays that we don't think he should give up, but he's still playing at a very high level.
And remember, Louisville's quarterback, who was completing over 70% of his passes going into that game, didn't even complete 60% of his passes against Notre Dame.
59.
Yeah, 59%. So
Yep.
I think they did a pretty good job. Xavier Watts, or Xavier Watts,
keeps getting better, which is scary. I mean, he is such a better football player this year, even than he was last year. He may not be making those impactful interception plays, but he got an interception last week. So, or a few days ago, but he is such a good, heady football player that it makes his physical attributes that much better as well. He's going to make some team extremely happy, in a few months when they have the NFL draft in April. I mean, he is so good.
Making money. He's making money.
There you go.
Right now, because that's, he could have headed to the NFL and probably been a late round draft pick last year, but the way he has played so far, that that instinct that he has is still there. He still finds himself around the ball, and I realize it was a deflected ball, that ended up in his hands. But hey, that's part of the game too, right? Like they don't designate interceptions, tip balls, or drop by receiver or whatever. It says the quarterback has an interception and the guy that got it has an interception. That's all it says. They don't put asterisks next to him for how they got it, And
but he was in the right place, though. Like
that's exactly it. He was there and he was ready. He capitalized, and that's just the way it is with him. And then the fact that he's only missed one tackle all season, like he has just been so sure with his tackles this year, and he just comes downhill so hard and so fast. And yeah, he's made himself some money just with what we've seen so far, and he's going to make even more as this season rolls along. We will finish with this for our word association. Marcus Freeman.
this is the hardest one. Love the guy, but needs work. How about that? I love the guy. I think all of his off the field characteristics are amazing. I think we're seeing how good of a recruiter he is based on all the young talent that's out there right now. But obviously, there's still room to grow. There's still room to grow. So he's got a lot of boxes checked, but there are a few boxes yet as a head coach that he still needs to figure out. And so he's a bit of a work in progress. He is. And I wish he was further along than he is right now. But, he's a work in progress.
Andre says, great recruiter, still evolving as a coach. Jay says, Troy is a fake troll, bro. Sorry, wrong one. Jeff says that Marcus is a yo-yo. And we've got some other Troy is a troll. Tom says, adequate. And mine matches Rabid Nile Chihuahua. Still learning. I didn't say unfortunately, but you can definitely throw that in there. Still learning is mine. And that's, kind of along the lines of some things that you were saying there. And I just, that's part of the learning process.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I'm sorry. I was responding to something that was in the chat. I need to stop reading the chat, but basically,
yeah, I know.
Michael says that he's the complete package for Notre Dame and needs big wins for national recognition. He gets big wins. It's the other ones that are the problem.
It's the Northern Illinois.
You can't
remember,
that.
Clemson was a top 5 team 2 years ago
when
they came to Notre Dame Stadium and Notre Dame just smacked them around all night. That's a big win. And he's got a ton of wins against ranked teams. I think it's 10 wins now that he's got against ranked teams.
Right.
In just 2+ years.
Exactly.
It's really pretty amazing.
He wins the big games.
Wins against ranked teams, but he's got losses to Marshall, Northern Illinois, and one of the worst Stanford teams that we've seen in the last 30 years.
Right. Yep. Exactly. And so he can't lose those games. That's the hurdle right now. That's the hurdle. It's the Marshalls, the Stanfords, the Northern Illinois. That's the hurdle. And if you can't get over that hurdle, it doesn't matter how many big wins you have, because you're not going to be putting yourself in position to have the biggest wins that you need. That's the problem.
I mean, he's doing like people have said, he's doing everything else great. I mean, the fact that Notre Dame could be as depleted as they were Saturday against Louisville, especially on the defensive side, and all that young talent to step in and play the way that they did. I mean, that shows right there the job that he's doing in recruiting.
Right.
He and his staff, but it's the other stuff that's got to be shored up.
And look, here's the deal. He's never going to get an opportunity to play those big programs that Michael just put into the chat if you lose to these crappy programs. Right. You're never going to be put on that national stage.
That stuff matters. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Right. Yeah. You got to do one before the other. It's literally putting the cart before the horse. Can't do that. You have to do the foundational things first. That's the biggest deal.
Steven says Ohio State would have changed his outlook a lot. I mean, at the time it would have, but beating Ohio State last year wasn't going to beat Northern Illinois for you this year.
Bingo.
You're still it's two completely separate things. So,
and to be honest with you, it
would have been a great win, but then you still have to turn around and win games like you lost. That continues to be the biggest question for Marcus Freeman right now.
Look, yes, the 10 men on the field was bad. There's no doubt about that. But guess what? That never happens if they catch that interception.
True.
It's not even a thing. And Marcus Freeman didn't drop that interception. So, I don't know. You can't boil down one game to one play. I mean, I've said that my whole life, and I'm not going to change my tune on that. But at the same time, there's only so much you can control as a head coach too. So I'm not giving him a pass. I am not giving him a pass. I want to be very clear on that. I'm not giving him a pass. But in order to make the playoff, be on the national stage that you want to be on, and win the big games that you need to win, you need to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. That's where we're at. That's what needs to be changed. That's what needs to be fixed.
Yeah. And again, like DJ Brown, not the biggest guy in the world, not the most skilled guy in the world. But like I've said before, and I'll continue to say it, like if all you watch is the still photo of that play, it's like, well, of course he should have caught that. But like when you watch the actual play, when he has to get in position and then go up, I mean, he was up as far as he could get, and that ball just grazed off his fingertips, unfortunately. Yeah. It was not the easiest play. Like
very true.
The still photo makes it look like a very easy play, but it's not, but if you have an Adon Schuler back there, he's probably able to make that play. He's a little bit bigger, a little bit more athletic. He's able to go up and get it. Still got to catch it, but
yep.
Again, like that's the kind of athlete that Freeman's brought into the program. Like,
correct.
You go from Brown to guys like Adon Schuler and, and so on. So, all right. Well, that was a fun little
baby
exercise there.
I like when we get people riled up.
I know, man. Like the chat is just hopping and popping tonight.
Oh yeah,
it's fired up.
Oh yeah,
Vince. Speaking of fire, are you ready for rapid fire?
I am so ready for rapid fire. Let's bring it on, Sean Stiers. Bring on rapid fire.
I'll be curious to see where you go with this because it's kind of in line with what we were talking about here a second ago. Fill in the blanks, plural. 5 games into the season, your greatest confidence about Notre Dame is blank. Your greatest concern is blank.
Easy. First blank, secondary. Second blank, offensive line. Those are my two. If they can somehow, again, get the offensive line to average, to consistently average, this team could take off. This team could absolutely take off. I've seen many a championship team with an average offensive line, average to good offensive line. That's all they need. So that's what I need to see.
My greatest confidence is the defense is going to keep them in every game as long as, like they can keep this glued together right now. Because my greatest concern is this, the injuries that have mounted up specifically with the Viper. Like, what are we going to see there going forward? Can you absorb any more injuries? Hopefully you don't have any. They really need to get Josh Burnham back for the other side. But like that to me is along with a little bit, the secondary answered some of it with both Benjamin Morrison and Christian Gray out last week. Like I'm not as concerned there, but again, like your numbers are not very deep. So like, what can you absorb? Like if you were to take another hit there, you don't even want to think about it. But like, that's my biggest concern is just the depth over there, like as good and as talented as those young guys are and the defense is in general. That's my biggest concern is just like you've become pretty depleted really fast because I mean,
it's fair.
Botelho and Traore were both just playing lights out and we don't know for sure what's going on with Traore, but we know Botelho is out. So I know. So after the Louisville game the other night, I asked Riley Leonard if that first quarter that he played is as confident as he has been this season. Here's his answer.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the most confident I felt. I think it's because of my preparation, and it's all due to the coaches. I think we're really starting to understand each other and understand the plays that I really like. So they do a great job calling that. And then, my preparation, I feel like that is a very complex defense that we just went against, and I felt like I knew exactly what I was going to get pre-snap the majority of the time. So I think it's just a testament to the hard work that we put in throughout the week and just paying attention to the little details. There's a game within a game, and a lot of people don't see that, but I think I was mentally prepared and knew what I was going to get.
So, Vince, you heard him talking about understanding each other, calling plays, and that kind of thing, and that is blank.
The definition of confidence. I mean, that is exactly what you need if you're a quarterback to be confident. I mean, you go into the game with confidence because you're prepared. And then you know that you are on the same page as your offensive coordinator with what is going to be called and what the big moments are going to be. I mean, he's comfortable, he's confident, and it's very obvious to me with that answer. So,
yeah, and I think that, and I know we've kind of hit this a little bit before, but with him missing the spring and then, he did go through fall camp. I am a little bit surprised that maybe it took him as long as it's taken them as long as it has.
Agreed.
To figure out like what you're like, did they kind of come into this like, well, this is what we want to do, and like make this it if nothing else, the Northern Illinois debacle, I think that kind of kicked them, kicked them to a different place. Like, okay, we really do, we need to work together here a little bit more. And we've definitely seen a continuation over these last few weeks that the offense is starting to go in the right direction. And the more you can make this guy confident, I think, because like that first quarter, if you could bottle that first quarter for Riley Leonard, the confidence, the way he was playing, as fired up as he was, because like the week before against Miami, Ohio, even when he scored, it was, just kind of like business as usual kind of thing. But he was fired up out there, like when he scored that touchdown against the Cardinals last week. And, just kind of bottle that. I think you can do that. The more they continue to get on the same page and find things that play to his strengths as much as possible, because let's just be honest. You can have whatever opinion you want about these quarterbacks, whether it's him or anyone behind him, but they're going to go as far as he is able to take them this year. That's just the way it is.
Oh, I agree with that completely. Yeah.
So one more from Riley Leonard. He talked about having confidence, there's that C word again, in Mike Denbrock's play calls.
No better feeling as a quarterback when coach just calls a play and you know it's going to work. So we caught a couple there. They weren't doing a great job in and outing the rub route. So whenever Jaden Harrison popped open, it's exactly what we had expected and anticipated. And then for the throwback screen to work, we practiced it all week, and what a great time to call it. Just worked out perfectly. They were in the perfect defense against it. Shout out to the coaches there. Those are easy plays to execute, and we did.
So what do you think, Vince?
I don't know why I enjoy listening to him talk. He just always sounds like...
He sounds very happy, doesn't he?
Yeah, he always just sounds like his grandma just brought him a cookie or something. You know what I mean? Like, he just always sounds like he's in such a good mood.
Gosh.
Yeah, it's like, golly, that was such a great call. Like, pass me a chocolate chip. I feel like he's clearly much more comfortable because of what those play calls are. And they are doing a very good job as a coaching staff to make sure that everybody's comfortable with those play calls, because he said they rep both of those plays over and over and over again. That's good preparation. That's good scouting. That's what you do. And they obviously had that play, the screen and the one to Harrison. They were both on the final drive, right? Or the final touchdown drive. They had those ready to go. They had them in their back pocket, ready to go. They could have used those in the second quarter, Sean. They could have used them in the third quarter if they wanted to, but they purposely shrunk the playbook. And like you said, they kind of BK'd the offense. And then when they needed to, it's like, oh, wait a minute. We've got these plays that are going to work, no problem. And they went boom, 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 touchdown. That's great preparation.
But I also like how Denbrock, like we just didn't see nearly as much of it with Tommy Rees and then Jared Parker, if we saw any of it. The way he will use a tendency to set something else up later on, like Jesse, go all the way back to Texas A&M when he drew up that third down pass conversion to Jaden Greathouse, where he came in motion from out of the right through the backfield and then over to the left. Like they had set that up with a similar play call earlier. Go to the Purdue game, where when Riley Leonard was in the first half, he's mostly handing the football off to Jeremiah Love. And you look and you see where Cooper Flanagan was over there. And it's like, oh, Flanagan's going to be wide open on this. And so in the second half, who gets the benefit of those run plays from the first half? Steve Angeli. They set him up for some layups, that he was able to make. And it's,
Exactly.
like again, like when you look at that screen pass, Leonard had done those little sprint outs to the right, both against a couple of them against Miami, Ohio last week, one in the first half against Louisville.
Set him
and
up.
so
Perfect.
they start to show that look. He starts to, to look like he's going to sprint out to the right. He stops and he just pops it back to the left. And there's love. And you get the ball in the hands of a great athlete. And that's all he's got to do. It's like, that's what I love about
big boys in front of him. Yeah.
Like Mike Denbrock is out there playing chess,
Yes,
whereas
absolutely.
those less experienced offensive coordinators were still in the, the early stages of checkers. It's like, do I get a king on this now? It's like,
seriously,
that's what Mike Denbrock is doing. He's setting things up, both from one game to the next and from one series to the next, and that's what's pretty cool. Like when you see little things like that come to fruition. And I just think that it's, again, like I realize Troy isn't here anymore. So, we don't even have to worry about that, like the offense is getting better. Like if you haven't seen anything else from the offense the last 2 weeks, it is getting better. Like a page has started to be turned. We're seeing much different things from the offense than we were 3-4 weeks ago.
No doubt. No doubt.
So, Vince, we didn't get a chance to talk about this yesterday because we had so much other stuff. Scale of 1 to 10. How do you rate the green jerseys with the white pants the Irish wore against Louisville?
This is I'm having trouble. I wanted to say this is the second best iteration of the green jerseys that I've ever seen at Notre Dame. It might be the best. I can't decide. So my favorite were the Brady Quinn, Jeff Samardzija era green jerseys. Okay. With the gold pants worked because the numbers were gold. Like I like that look.
I like the forest green a little bit more.
I did. I like that shade of green. I like the gold with that green. Like that was a great look. Although I really like the white pants with this one, man. I really liked it. So those two are kind of neck and neck for me. It probably depends on the traditional side of me likes the Brady Quinn, Jeff Samardzija greens. The new era version of me likes the white pants. It's for what they have going on right now. It's a 10 because I also like the fact that they added the gold around the numbers, which they did not have last year. And I like the way that shiny gold.
And I didn't notice it. Maybe I saw it on TV a little bit, but Drake Bowen was the only player who wore his uniform into the post-game press conference. And when he came in, you could really see it up close. Some people don't like this green. Obviously, like you said, you like a darker green. This is my favorite green, actually. I like this shade of green. I don't like the forest green. I like this green, and I really like the white pants. And, I don't know if maybe it was because of the, that gold trim that you were talking about, but like to me, the gold helmets looked even golder and shinier, I thought, with the green jerseys out there.
That's fair.
It made the helmets pop even more.
I love the white bottoms.
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't like about the white bottoms is that Louisville wore white on white. So it's a lot of white lowers.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can't dictate what somebody else is going to wear. So, I mean, whatever. I still, in a vacuum, man, the green on white just looks so good. I'm still hoping for a little white on the road at some point. I really am hoping that happens because even though the outcome wasn't what people wanted it to be, I don't care. That was a great look.
Have we ever seen, have we seen the uniform unveil for the Shamrock series?
No.
I don't think we have.
So.
I wonder what that's going to look like. I wonder what they're going to do there. I will say, and I know people bring this up all the time, why don't they go to the real gold pants? Like they remember a few years back when they wore, it was like a commemorative to the 1988 season where they had kind of a mesh looking blue jersey. Yeah. The 88 team actually wore gold pants. Why do they still have this mustard around if the gold is available?
It's a great question. We know that it is available. We know they can do it. So do it. Do it. It's okay.
Oh, you know what? I think they did. Yeah, the Gotham blue.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
did.
right.
Remember, because it's got There's like
That's right.
throwbacks to the blue-gray October sky and all that
Yeah.
different kind of stuff. Yeah, they have unveiled those. That's right.
I remember them now.
It's
And
like a
I
slate.
actually
They
don't
called it
mind them.
blue-gray, but it's like a slate gray. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got the really shiny numbers and the Gothic kind of number font. I just pulled it up and I'm looking at it. I don't mind though. I mean, for alternates, okay, cool. It's got the blue-gray sky look to it.
One-time thing. Yeah.
With the gold accents. They've really dove into the shiny gold on the fabric. Like they have really dove into that because they've got it on all of their jerseys this year. The greens, the blues, the whites, the Gotham. They've got it on everything. And I like it. I like the shiny gold.
I do too.
I like it.
I do too.
It helps pop the helmet too.
Yeah. And again, like the green jerseys they wore the other day, so much better than those ones they wore for a couple years where it was like the blue numbers on the green.
Yeah, that I agree with. Because you couldn't read the numbers, first of all. No. I did not like that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like the green, and I like the green with the white. So
yeah, me too.
So the Matt Sluka UNLV thing has, of course, been one of the bigger stories in college football over the past week. And again, because we had so much to get to yesterday, we didn't get to talk about this. But Reese Davis sounded off on it on ESPN's College Game Day the other day. Here's what Reese Davis said, quote, if you make a dumb mistake in life, let me start over. Quote, if you make a dumb mistake in life, if I do, Matthew Sluka, or whoever does, sometimes you have to wear that. And going in there and expecting something without writing, and then they don't give it to you, you just can't bail on them. End quote. So do you buy or sell Reese Davis on this?
I sell it. I absolutely sell it. I mean, I don't look, should he have got it in writing? Yeah. Do we know all the facts? Because there's people out there, saying this, that, and the other. I don't know what happened. If the scenario occurred that they promised him something, if he came and they didn't give it to him, I don't have a problem with it. It's business. Like that's what college football is now. Now, if my kid is in high school or whatever, and a coach makes a promise to him, and they don't fulfill the promise, I would not allow my kid to quit. But this, Sluka's not my kid, and it's different when you're getting paid. I'm sorry, it's different when you're getting. Everybody wants college to be a business. They want all these kids to get paid. Well, then you're going to have decisions like this. This is what NIL, the way they're doing NIL. This is what happens. So he only went to UNLV because of these promises, is what it sounds like.
That's right. He started his career at Holy Cross. He played for 4 or 5 years at Holy Cross. And then this was his opportunity because he was a Holy Cross quarterback. This was his opportunity to stay in school and go make some money playing football because he has no guarantees after whatever happens this year at UNLV. And it's, I don't know if he ever hired an agent or, there's been so many different things said about what did.
Right. And I don't know what to believe.
You've got the coaching staff. Yeah. It's should you have got it in writing? Yeah.
Sure.
But if you're Reese Davis, this is a very easy thing to say when you're sitting on TV and you get paid to talk on TV and you're making more than $1 million a year. It's well, you should know better. You should sign, you should get it in writing. So a college kid took the coach's word for it, that they was going to come out there and they were actually going to live up to their end of the bargain, and again, I'm sorry, but Matthew Sluka, because he only has one time to do this, he only has, this, if they weren't going to pay him, this is his golden egg, basically. His arm and his football playing ability is his only chance to make a little extra cash, whatever it happens to be, before he goes on and does whatever he's going to do for the rest of his life. Because there's obviously no guarantee that he's got any kind of pro football future, which is why he stayed.
That's why he went to UNLV in the first place,
to get a little extra money. Yeah, that's right.
Look, I got a couple of things here from the chat. So Jay says, as a former player, initially it pissed me off, but realistically, it's the kid's livelihood. Shame on that program for not being able to put up a measly $100K.
Yeah.
Stephen B says he's not going to get that money anywhere else. Well, that's not true because 100K is pretty low rent for
And there
a
are
lot
a
of
lot of
players.
FBS
Just gonna say that.
schools. Yeah.
And then I tend to agree with the getting. Originally, when I heard this, I was like, "Come on, how do you quit on your team?" He doesn't go to that team unless those promises are made.
Absolutely right.
Those are the facts. And somebody said, "Well, if he would have gone to the powers that be, then they would have made it right." You don't think that he tried to get it done and he tried and asked him, is like, "Hey, how come I'm not getting that?" Of course he did. And they said, "No, we're not doing that." So then he quit. It wasn't like he woke up one day and was like, well, I guess they're not going to give it to me. I'm going to quit now. Like,
I mean, I heard that like there was like after he went to them and had never received any money, they were like something like, "Oh, we can give you $3,000 a week or something like that." But then they never even did that either.
Yeah, right.
There were a lot of different things apparently that were said about what was going to happen, and it just never came through. So I mean, again, there are a lot of FBS programs, and $100,000 in the bigger scheme with NIL being what it is John is saying 3,000 a month. Again, like
3,000.
There's a lot of information out there. 3,000 a month.
I mean, that's great, but that's not.
Yeah, but it's still not $100,000.
No, that's exactly. I mean, look, we can all do simple math, right? $100,000 divided by 3,000. That's going to take you 33 months. That's 3 years to get that 100K. Okay. That is not what he was promised. I mean, Again, I don't know all the details, but $3K a month.
Even say July, August, September, October, November. So that's $15,000 if it's as opposed to 100,000. Big difference there. So they did, and I saw somebody say they didn't miss a beat. I mean, they went out and plastered Fresno State,
They're ranked.
Good for them. But they got another transfer quarterback behind him. But look, we'll just kind of shift into this right now because similar topic, Nick Sabin, as they were talking about all this. Here's what Sabin said of players redshirting in the middle of the season. Bleep like this is why I retired. Either get in or get out. So do you buy or sell Nick Sabin?
I gotta say, man, I buy it. I buy that, and I know that. Okay, number one, I'm buying it as the reason that he got out because that there's no doubt that the NIL and this kind of stuff, and that's absolutely why he got out of coaching because he could have kept coaching. Are you kidding me? He clearly has all of his faculties. He understands football. Like he could have coasted for a long time as a coach, right? But coaching got a heck of a lot more complicated with all of the new legislation and the money and the thises and the that's and the transfer portal. It's a pain in the butt. And so if you have the opportunity to get out, he did. And I don't blame him for that whatsoever. I think redshirting in the middle of the season is ridiculous. I'm not a fan of it. I don't like it. Doesn't matter what kind of kid you are off the field. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
I'm selling it because essentially, and again, I understand why Nick Sabin is saying this because forever and a day, college coaches had control over everything. They used to be able to, like there was no transfer portal and they could control, they could come up with a list of teams that you couldn't transfer to. They had control over everything. And now they came up with this 4-game rule. And I understand why coaches don't like it. It's because they don't have control over everything anymore. And coaches and fans, as I can see by, basically people having, this being in the same boat as you, like they want the allegiance of the player to be to the team. But at the end of the day, the player still has to be able to look out for himself. And honestly, I'm surprised we haven't seen more of this because, like the Kelly Bryant thing at Clemson came up when DJ Uiagalelei was coming in and Kelly Bryant got pushed aside for him and he did it in the middle of the season. And I do remember not being necessarily that thrilled about it at that point. But again, it's like when you look back, like you have to look out for your future, just like Sluka in a different way. Like you have to be able to say, well, okay, I can stay here, but I'm going to give up a year of eligibility and be a reserve. And, maybe I end up playing a bit role in every game. But, if I have pro aspirations or even aspirations of making a little bit more NIL someplace else, like you can remove yourself from being like the small fish in a big pond and go be a big fish in a smaller pond someplace and put yourself in a better position for your future. I don't like, again, like it sucks from the team standpoint, but the players still have to look out for themselves, I think, at the end of the day as well.
I get that. I totally understand that. And I don't have a problem with players being able to do that. If you're going to transfer between seasons. Don't transfer in the middle of the season. That's all I'm saying. Coaches generally aren't leaving in the middle of the season. They leave after the season's over, maybe before a bowl game. But
Unless they get fired, but yeah.
Well, and that's out of their control, obviously.
Right.
Coaches aren't firing kids in the middle of the season. They're not kicking them off the team. Well, I mean, I guess they could, but not from just like a playing standpoint, right? So I'm cool with the transfer portal for the most part because it does give kids exactly what you said. It gives them more power, and I'm all about that, right? I'm about to have a kid playing collegiate athletics myself. I don't want him to be a pawn, in some coach's whatever. I want him to have power of his own, right? And I just don't like it in the middle of the season. That's the only part I don't like. And I realize there are extenuating circumstances at times, and I get it, but it's also okay to like the player and the person and not like the action that they're doing, right? And obviously I'm referring to Jaden Mickey. I love that kid. I can never imagine going through what he's going through. So it's possible to have it both ways. Like I deal with this all the time at work. There's a lot of kids that come through my office I really like as kids, but they made a really dumbass decision and I got to give them discipline. You know what I mean? So like you can like the person and not like the action and still, roll.
I just saw somebody say, I wonder if I think they were saying, I wonder if Sluka could go play at James Madison for his old coach. And I just saw the other day that
he made a comment about it. And I don't know what he said.
I'm looking for it right here. Anyone who's ever played football for me and sweated or bled for me on that field is for me. I stand by 100%. This is Bob Chesney. He's Sluka's former coach from Holy Cross. He's at James Madison now. I don't know the details, but I can assure you it has nothing to do with money, is what Chesney said.
Interesting twist.
Chesney also noted that UNLV wasn't the only school pursuing Sluka. He said schools offered Sluka NIL deals exceeding $500,000, but money was never the major influence in his decisions. Quote, Matt had opportunities to leave Holy Cross for hundreds of thousands of dollars and stayed. Then he had opportunities again in the spring. After the spring season ended and some major college football coaches lost their starters to the portal, they called and reached out to me. What happened there, I can't necessarily speak to, but I can assure you it has nothing to do with more money, end quote. So, for what it's worth, Bob Chesney,
well, there you go,
former
Bob.
coach from Holy Cross, now at James Madison. So, there you go.
There it is.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that the SEC and Big Ten are discussing a possible future scheduling partnership.
Love it. If you're the big boys, if you are the top two conferences, self-proclaimed and probably deservedly so most of the time, play against each other. I dig it. I like it. Do it.
And apparently, I think they're trying to set this up to, ultimately make sure that each of them get more at-large bids in the college football playoff and stuff like that. You got good against good and all that different kind of stuff. And I mean, it'll bring on some really nice premier, non-conference early season matchups if they do this. And I did see that the Big Ten kind of wants to make sure, like the SEC still hasn't completely finalized what their conference schedule is going to be going forward. The Big Ten wants them to have a 9-team conference season, I guess, which is what the Big Ten is doing. So I just think it's going to be, I think it'll be better for everybody if they ultimately do
Big
this.
games.
So
Love
I'm
it.
all in on it as well. That's right.
I would love to see the SEC play more like Big Ten teams as opposed to the 1AA teams. Like they're,
For sure.
I forget what week it is, towards the end of the year, and they're all playing 1AA teams that week. It's like, really? This is what we're going to get in week like 12 or 13 is you're going to play the Sisters of the Holy Cross? Like, come on, man. It's time to step it up a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you've got playoff negotiations, and all that kind of stuff going on in the near future, and so that's going to be fun when as the Big Ten and the SEC try to take over the world still. So save that for the off season. We'll have plenty of that to talk about,
no doubt.
So Vince, Pete Rose died yesterday. What's the first thing you think of when you think of Pete Rose?
The head first slide. That's when I was a kid. So he stopped playing in like 85 or 86. And that's right around the time that I started playing baseball, right? That's when I was in Pee-wees, and the whole deal. I started like 6, 7 years old, something like that. And anytime you slid head first, it would be like, he's doing a PD. You gotta rip a PD. Like that was it. I never saw him play live. I never saw him play like obviously in his prime or anything like that. I was a little kid. So he was always kind of an enigma, like great player, and he was the guy that head first slid all the time. Like that's who he was to me. And so it was like, hey, we're going to do a PD here, that kind of a thing. So that's what always comes to my head.
Yep. Charlie Hustle is, it seemed a couple people popping in there. And just like, I just think about that big barrel chested Pete Rose, and you're absolutely right. Just like sailing head first in
the
there. That's always the same thing. Yep, I started sliding. It's like I banged my legs up a few times sliding, and I started doing the head first slide, into second base and third base and all that.
I mean, he would sail in the he would get high up in the air and just flop down, and I mean, he had no care for his body whatsoever, and I mean that in the best way possible. Like that was awesome.
Yeah. DMG says the bowl haircut, that was the next thing, that bowl haircut kind of flopping around. And the 1980 World Series, when he was playing for the Phillies, he was playing first base, and they were playing the Kansas City Royals in the World Series, and it was just like, oh, I just hated Pete Rose. It's like, like Tug McGraw doing his thing out there where he would bounce the, like his glove and all this stuff. And then every time Pete Rose, like when they would throw over to him at first base for the final out of an inning, he'd slam the ball down on that AstroTurf. And it was just, oh, Pete Rose, you just make me so mad. But, but he was, like Pete Rose, because obviously I'm from the age, it's just like, there are, like, guys who were, and he was one of them, who were just like, they were from like the first baseball memory that I have, they were part of the game. Sure. It's like for me, like Pete Rose, George Brett, obviously, those kind of guys, Ricky Henderson, who was obviously younger than either one of those guys, but like from the minute, I sort of had any cognition of baseball, Johnny Bench, those kind of guys, like they were the guys who were playing back then. And like, I don't know if you saw this, but he was actually supposed to do, it was called An Evening with Pete Rose. It was supposed to be in Elkhart like last week.
And it got canceled.
They canceled it, and they had rescheduled it for November. And we still I haven't heard exactly. I haven't seen any details on how he passed away, but it must have been because he got sick and they had to, to try to reschedule.
I remember that happening like last week or the week before. I just didn't put 2 and 2 together, to be honest with you. Never put 2 and 2 together, because I had heard like they didn't sell out, or, there was supposed to be like kind of a minimum, so he got paid or whatever. And so it made sense that he would cancel, but then they rescheduled it. So, that's wild. Wild.
Yep. Major League Baseball record holder, hits, games played, at-bats, and plate appearances. 83 years old.
Crazy.
Of course, the gambling thing, I think, and that's what I was wondering, because like you, with the age you were at, like if the gambling and like that kind of stuff would be the stuff that you remembered most. But
head
first slide, I like it.
Yep.
So Dikembe Mutombo also passed away I guess it wasn't unexpected. Yeah, for him, he had brain cancer. He was only 58 years old. And I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but that you were just doing,
The
that
finger wag.
finger wag after the block shot, one of the best, yes, yet most subtle celebrations I
Loved
think
it.
in sports. The Dikembe
Oh,
finger wag.
listen.
Awesome.
So Mutombo played when I was growing up. And so everybody knew who Dikembe Mutombo was. And so anytime you were on like the court or whatever with your boys and you're playing in the driveway, if you stuffed somebody, you gave him the finger wag, baby. You gave him the finger wag. Like that absolutely happened all the time. And it's because of Dikembe Mutombo. Like it was the finger wag, man. I will never forget the finger wag ever.
Antoine said he had brain cancer for 2 years. I didn't realize that he had
I didn't
for 2
either.
years before he passed away. Very good. But anyone that young is obviously very tragic. And Chris Christopherson passed away as well. A big, as a digital footprints in the sand, legendary songwriter. Sunday Morning Coming Down, I think, is one of the ones that he wrote. Did a lot of stuff. Wrote a lot of songs for a lot of different people in country music. He was in the movie Convoy. He was in the original A Star Is Born with Barbra Streisand back in the 70s, and I think that was the original. Maybe that might have even been the second one, but the one from
that might have
the
been the second one, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
But he passed away as well. But so some 3 greats gone in a very short amount of time. I saw Chris Christopherson. They did I think it was late spring, maybe early summer. They were doing a Willie Nelson birthday celebration concert, and they brought Chris out, and because they had it was one of those where they just were like shuffling, so a lot of different singers and acts and stuff. They would come out and they would sing a song or two with Willie Nelson and that kind of thing. And Chris Christopherson was one of them. And you could tell he was getting up there in years. Yeah. The Highwaymen. Yep. Good. Highwaymen. I used to trust me, digital footprints. I worked at 2 country stations. The first 2 stations, 2 of the first 3 I worked at in the business were country stations. And one of them played a lot of classic country. And my dad was actually he had a lot of, I know he had at least one Chris Christopherson. This will get you. We'll see how old you are here. Oh, Chris Christopherson 8-track tape from back in the day when I was a kid. My dad had a whole freaking drawer full of the 8-tracks. Pop out the 8-track machine and so pop in the Chris Christopherson. So Jeff wants to know, what's the chance down the road the Big Ten and the SEC force Notre Dame's hand to joining a conference as they gain more power? I mean, it's always a concern, but
sure.
I think that they're fully content. I mean, the Big Ten would love to have them. The SEC would as well, but it sounds like kind of where things, were left off when Jack Swarbrick retired was the SEC was sort of fully willing to kind of help Notre Dame stay independent, to keep them from joining the Big Ten, because the SEC would want them as much, but they know that they're not going to get Notre Dame to join the SEC just because of the academics, difference in schools and stuff like that.
The only way that Notre Dame joins a conference or is forced to join a conference is if they are boxed out of the national championship. That's it. That's the only possible way. As long as they still have a road to the national championship, they're not joining a conference. That's it. It is just that simple. So until that happens, you don't have to worry about it.
TV contract, path to the championship, place for the Olympic sports. That's always been the 3 big ones, and they've still got all 3 of them right now. Michael says we're going to get forced into a conference. That was when Sankey was SEC commissioner. I think there is nope. Sankey's still the guy.
They're not going to get forced into anything as long as they have a path.
Yeah,
doesn't matter
as long as there's a path to. But this next round of playoff negotiations, it will be interesting to see how many, because the Big Ten and the SEC do want to force their hand to try to be guaranteed as many playoff spots as possible. And, how many of the spots do they gobble up and all that kind of stuff. But I think with the expanded playoff the way it is and the TV contract Notre Dame has with NBC, Notre Dame's in really good shape.
And they're going to expand the playoff even more to 14. That's not going to eliminate Notre Dame. That gives them more spots. But
if the SEC and the Big Ten are guaranteed more spots, then it's kind of a walk. There's still going to be.
I get that.
There's still going to be more than 4. They're going to be a lot more out. There's still going to be at-large spots available.
Exactly.
I agree with that. Lance also wants to know any idea when Gabriel Rubio is coming back. Don't know yet. Again, I would imagine next Monday you'll get Notre Dame will put out its injury report and we'll see what it says. And it's everything's just kind of wait and see at this point. But we only get the injury updates when we get a chance to talk to.
And that's not till next Monday. So we will know nothing until next Monday. So sorry.
No. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight, Vince. We covered a lot as usual.
We really did. We did cover a lot, and that's okay. Welcome to the bye week, everyone. Welcome to the bye week.
Father David just getting in a little zinger before we wrap things up. He says we haven't spoken about replacing our starting quarterback in a while. Can we talk about that for all of tomorrow's shows?
Tomorrow is the mailbag show.
If Michael shows up, yeah, that's right. All right. Boy. Well, appreciate you joining us. A lot of good stuff coming through the chat tonight. Some other stuff. Well, I don't know. Once the troll was gone, I think that things kind of simmered down a little bit.
Yeah. So and he was just putting a timeout. He was not banned forever. Just a timeout. But apparently that was too much. He decided to leave.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate all the dialogue. We do have a special guest to look forward to.
That's right.
On Thursday's show. So getting all that finalized, and I might even let you know who it is on tomorrow.
No, don't give it up. Don't give
it up. Don't give it up.
No.
Okay.
I think they all need to be surprised.
Stymie remains a big Tom Noy fan.
Hey, I'm a big Tom Noy fan.
John, looking forward to Jesse. He is still out this week. I think what's going to happen,
DK,
for the short term, it's Angeli. I think what's going to happen, I think Jesse is going to be back next week, but it might just be for rapid fire. So, it might be a 50-50 show with you and Trevor and Jesse for a couple weeks still. We got to get all that ironed out, but we'll see.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. All right. Hit the like button before you leave, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.